Alright guys, since a whole bunch of us were starting to get into Stronghold Legends, I thought I'd chuck up sort of little tutorial one. This is just me singing single player skirmish. Usually when we play online, we'll be using like high of every starting resource, random events off, and like 20 minutes of peacetime. Can't do peacetime in single player, so I'll just do it without peacetime.
You need to place a stockpile.
This will just give you a basic idea of what you need to do, where you need to place certain buildings, stuff like that. So, how to get started, usually what I do is I'll build a market in the corner based on how much space I have. Auto buy wood to something like 200, maybe 250. Get your houses down as fast as possible somewhere in the corner. If, of course, you have less space, you might want to be more specific with your placement. Now, the most, easiest to sell good
Can't place that there,
that, sells for the most money is iron. I'm doing a terrible job already. So pretty much we want to get the iron down as fast as possible once we've got our houses down. And I'm doing a terrible job of this today. I'm sort of in a little bit of a hurry because I don't have too much time. So I just want to get the basics down really. So in most situations you'll have like 20 minutes peacetime. And pretty much that's for you to get your eco running, get all your stockpile and shit like that ready, get your weapons ready, all that kind of stuff. Now we're out of money, so what we're going to do is we're just going to quickly sell all the iron and we're going to easily get almost all the money we need back. Another thing you want to quickly place down is the armory. I like to put mine next to my keep just so I know where it is and somewhere close to the stockpile. And what you can do is you can sell any extra weapons. Like I never use macemen, so I sell maces, and I never use man-at-arms, so I sell them spears. Gives you that little bit of extra money so you can float the resources you need to quickly buy the stuff such as your quarries. Quarries, not sure how good they are in terms of money, but hey, you need stone for your walls in terms of defense. I'll talk about these units later because these units you only get at the end of peacetime. Food is another thing entirely. I mean, food is important, but on certain maps that are like custom maps that we normally play on, you get a large portion of iron, sometimes even larger than this. Like you can put your entire population on iron. Those maps you just don't need to build any food granaries. What you can do is you can just auto buy food. Just set it's like auto buy 80 of each of the foods, then you can run like double rations and stuff like that. Since you start with high food, you can pretty much just straight off start with double rations and like double the 4 times the taxes.
Merlin, my friend, it's good to see
there's werewolves coming. Gotta keep that in mind. Let's just put up a wall so the wolves don't get in. So yeah, that's pretty much the main things you do at the start of the game. Try to get your houses down as fast as possible. Try to fill as much iron as you can, as efficiently as you can, because iron is really important. Oxen tethers on stone should be more, because these stone quarries actually work really fast compared to those guys. And then if you have any spare, usually I'd say recommend putting a bunch of it on food, and then the rest you can throw somewhere else. You can throw it to something such as like your honor, because a lot of people, in this case I don't need it because the map has given me all these statues, so my honor is already going crazy. But in a lot of cases, when you don't have it, you'll have to use your castle, kitchen, pantry, your vineyard, and all that kind of stuff to pretty much pull out the resources you need. Now, if you find yourself low on money at this stage and you want to build more, you can actually just sell all your stone for extra money, and you can sell all the extra bread. Especially in a map like this, since it gives you so much honor, you don't need a variety of food. So you can just sell all your bread, and then bam, a whole bunch of extra money, and then you can make, a whole bunch of extra stuff. And the whole point is to get as much out as early as possible, just like in Sprint Commander, it's efficiency based. The more you get out, the better. Usually I don't build wood camps, because it takes 3 population, and they're slow as fuck to cut down trees.
Sire.
Now when that first declarement comes saying that I was the 2nd greatest lord, that's a good thing. You want to be at the bottom of the rankings at the first declaration, because that means you spent all your resources the fastest, so you've pretty much beaten everybody else at spending resources. Problem you may run into the iron mines in the corner is if you don't put oxen tethers near enough, they can't get deep. So what you can do is you can put oxen tethers further away. You can click on the oxen tether, it'll get a rally point, and you can click specifically on an iron mine. When you do that, that specific oxen tether will go to that specific iron mine first before going to any nearby ones to collect other resources. As you can see, the ones deeper in are starting to fill up with iron. If you forget to build oxen tethers, they'll just reach a maximum iron supply and then just stop producing more. And until it reaches your stockpile, you don't get any of those resources. Now, when you're playing as Arthur, there are multiple ways to get more honor than the other races. First of all, you can build bread. Having 4 different types of foods will increase the amount of honor you get. Secondly, you have churches. Churches, I believe, belong to both the Arthur faction and the Ice faction. Building churches plus chandler shops near your stockpile. These dudes require no materials, like no input, they will just output candles. And then you can get honor and happiness through a church. Both of which are effective ways to increase your taxes. As you can see, there are some certain issues with the iron here, but the one that I put a rally for the ox on is pretty much empty. So you can just chuck down a few more.
Can't place that
You
there,
can
my
chuck
lord.
them down further away if there's no space nearby, and just set the rally points for them onto specific iron mines that may be, you know, a bit issue-y. Now, pretty much we want to use up all of our population. So at this point we have not used up all of our population. We're still sitting at 125, 128. In peacetime, since you have 20 minutes and you know you can't be attacked, I would usually use up all of my idle peasants. So I'll be at 128 of 128, and all my idle peasants would be 0. My idle peasants would be 0, and my empty buildings and homeless peasants would be 0. Because that way you're using all your builders to get your resources while you're in peacetime. Then as peacetime begins to end, you can delete a couple buildings to get soldiers back. Me personally, I prefer to sit on 18 idle peasants when in battle, because when you build a lookout tower, these lookout towers can fit exactly 18 soldiers in them, and that is for every single race. That's why I like it. That way when you build like your barracks, and you can set it to like pre-make 18, or you can even set it to pre-make 24 and it'll only make 18 if you have the materials for it. Then you know you can pretty much just straight up.
Your mark,
Usually, if you
sire.
click properly,
We move.
yeah, see they'll all perfectly fit inside. Now, a thing that I usually do at the end of peacetime,
You have
at the end
need
of
me.
peacetime and like the start of combat, is you get given a lot of these units. These man-at-arms are useless because they're really weak. They're just like your early basic units. Right? They're super cheap, but they're just really weak. So what I do is, in most cases, is I'll disband them by clicking this little button down here.
sir.
When you do this, they all turn into peasants. This means you now have extra peasants with which you can quickly create troops with. As I know, my eco is pretty down the drain because there's no peacetime here. But this is a really good way to put out units you actually need or want, rather than having to mess around with these. And you can do it to all of them. You could just go straight up. I usually like to keep the knights. These pikemen and crossbowmen are actually slower than your normal units you produce.
You are the
So
greatest
it's better to disband them all.
lord.
So you can just disband everything you don't need, and bam, I have 118 idle peasants. So I can now just produce 118 units if I had the economy to do so. Now the reason I have no money is because I forgot to do one important thing, which Josh forgot to recently, which is auto sell iron. You just gotta set it to auto sell 1, otherwise you're gonna have a fuck ton of iron. The reason we sell iron is because it is a lot of money, and bam, as you can see, selling like 100 something iron just got me 7k, and with that I can just spit out units. Another thing you want to do before the end of peacetime, if you have a huge iron supply or a decent iron supply, is auto buy your weapons. Usually, since I'm running 18, I'll set my auto buys to 20 for all the units I like to produce. And don't forget your armors for your certain types of units. Bam. And that way you can just click here and you can go, I'll build 20 of those, 20 of those, 20 of those.
What is it? There is
And you
no
can easily
rest
spit out
for
an army.
mine.
And your dudes will start buying stuff. Out of money again because I spit out too many dudes so
sense
fast.
trouble.
But yeah, so at the end of peacetime,
up on
you can
those
disband
walls!
most of your soldiers, the ones that you don't need, and then just make more. Make the ones you actually need. I tend to also, because in combat, you know, if you're under attack and stuff, I tend to leave my stone at like auto buy 250 and auto sell like 600 or 500. Otherwise your stockpile will fill up and you'll have problems. In terms of food, if you're running double rations and you can maintain over 10 months supply, or 8's alright, but 10 month is ideal just in case if your dudes get destroyed. That's usually good. If you go over 10 months supply, what you can do is you can just go to your food and auto sell it a certain amount. So you can set that auto sell to like 300 for me since it's 250, and for apples I'll probably set that to like 80. Just keep in mind having more soft peasants, like the homeless ones, will increase the amount of food consumption. So you do want to use them quickly and just get back to your 128 of 128 status. That's pretty much it when it comes to like your eco and stuff. Like when it comes to ecoing, if you got a lot of iron, you want to take advantage of that. Make sure you place sufficient ox tethers, watch out for some mines filling up, and then just set specific rallies to those mines if no ox and tethers are heading to them. Stone can be valuable, but more for the fact of defensive buildings and structures rather than for money. You just want a sufficient enough amount of food. Having surplus isn't really that good, unless you're planning to send it to your allies. Otherwise, it doesn't sell for enough. Now on a map
from
where
King
you don't
Arthur.
have...
Where are my true knights now?
On a
In
map
this,
where
our
you
time of
don't
need.
have as much iron, for example, or a lot of iron, a solution that you can take,
Can't
or not a
place that there,
solution,
my
but an
lord.
alternative build to your eco, is to either go a huge amount of hops farms. Hops farms sell nowhere near as much as iron, but it's sort of like the next best spammable thing. Alternatively, wheat farms. If you have space but no iron, you can spam these up instead. And you can spam twice the amount as you could have iron, because iron has 2 peasants per mine. And pretty much selling the stuff they produce is decent money. Of course, you want to place them close to your stockpile, because these things will just make their own goods and send them to the stockpile. And that is pretty much an alternative way for a decent income. Another build that you can do is you can run the hops farms and you can actually run the whole brewery. If you run like the hops farms, the breweries, and the inn, which I've placed terribly here, these things should be as close to the stockpile as possible. If you run these, you can get double happiness out of here, which is +4 happiness, right? And if you also run chandler workshops, which make you candles,
Can't place that there, my lord.
and a church,
Can't place that there, my
you can
lord.
also run double here as well. That'll give you a total of 8 extra happiness. That will allow you to put your taxes up to extra cruel, and that's giving you 192 gold every 2 seconds. That's another build in which you can get a lot of money relatively quickly if you have a decent amount of land, good building design, like this is terrible to be honest, good building design, and no iron. Otherwise, usually the best alternative is always iron. On certain maps, if you find that you're sort of limited on space as well, and limited on like your iron supply, those are probably the times when you can build tanner workshops. Tanner workshops are pretty good because all they need are dairy farms, and they'll make leather armor for you, which can be sold for decent amounts. See, 10 sells for 120 gold, which is not too bad, and they generally produce them pretty fast. Although you probably want to put these near your stockpile as well. They pretty much, the cows will instantly teleport to them, I believe, and then they will have to travel. Yeah, see, the cows instantly teleport to them, and then they will then just take the armor straight to the armory. So actually, you want them close to your armory. Your other craftsmen, you want to put them between your armory, somewhere between your armory and your workshop. Alright, well that's it for this sort of mini tutorial. I'll catch you guys later.